So I want to get in a few minutes I want to end with a sort of bigger conversation on the Green New Deal. I think you deserve so much credit for continuing to center that. And I think actually the proposal that Sanders has put forward is mind-bogglingly ambitious and is actually another resetting in terms of what you're talking about in terms of expectation sets. But how do you look at the race now? I mean, there's still this like desperate effort on the media to pretend that Sanders is done. Then you have this hilarious New York Times report today that, and I got to be honest, I think rightly, I am terrified of Elizabeth Warren going up against Donald Trump. I'll be totally blunt. I am not confident in that matchup for, as I always say, reasons that are terrible, like serious misogyny, and reasons that are like, she's not a good candidate in some very important ways. And people may want to, I think, kind of delude themselves on that, but we need to look at things a little bit clinically too. And then, of course, just the broader sort of corporate class hating and being terrified of Bernie and even kind of being like, Warren, maybe we could deal with her, but maybe not. And then this hysterical, like, what we really need is Mike Bloomberg or John Kerry. I mean, like, just like, okay, these are clearly some of the most crazy. I mean, that type of article really does make you think like Donald Trump is a sovereign example of mental health compared to the Democratic Party leadership class if they think that we need to be rescued by John Kerry or Michael Bloomberg. So what's your broader read? I mean, is Bernie in it? Do you accept some of my concerns about Warren? Do you think one of these other, Jesus Christ, I didn't even, God forbid, Hillary Clinton, one of these other people jump in? What's your read on all of that?
Well, I really hope that I'm not being naive, but I have to imagine that there's no way that Hillary is getting into this, right, Michael?
John, I can't promise you that. I think that Hillary Clinton is a highly narcissistic, delusional person. So
yeah.
Now, I would
honestly,
say the civil war between Warren,
say?
Clinton, and Harris supporters and the amount of clap emojis that would be used could crash Twitter.
Oh my God.
That would be funny.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I don't want to get her hyped up to possibly get in. Even like the response to her attacks against Tulsi Gabbard. Like, I understand if you're Tulsi, you obviously have to defend yourself. But I almost want to be like, no, don't engage with her. Keep her out of this process. I don't want her to be a big part of this news cycle because maybe then she will start to think about entering the race. But look, zooming out, I think that we probably have basically the field that we're going to have. Mm-hmm. I think all of your concerns that you expressed about Warren, I probably share very similar versions of them. I think that on the debate stage, she's shown herself to be better than I would have expected based on my past viewing of her speeches, her academic background. That doesn't generally produce someone who's able to defend themselves well. And
right.
She obviously can't do it on the debate stage the way that like Bernie Sanders can. But I mean, she was ganged up on quite a bit by Buttigieg and that type, and in the debate before, Delaney and Bullock and all of that. I thought she did a better job of defending herself, but she was defending herself from largely sort of, centrist or right-wing framing attempts on her policies, not, like, as you pointed out, insane misogyny, insane, anti-Native American attacks and things like that, like what she'd experience if it was Donald Trump. And so I agree, if she was the one on the stage with Trump, I would not be going to those nights with confidence.
Well, I mean, also just like, first of all, also billions of dollars. And I mean, look, I like the whole thing with her Native American identity. It's like, first of all, I got to say, like, I do think if somebody wants to bring it up, it's not like an illegitimate criticism. It's overblown, but it's also maybe something that is, I don't think it's illegitimate to talk about. But my inclination, certainly would be whatever, people make mistakes, people like blow it over. But this is an example where it's like the social demands of the professional class inside the Democratic Party and the reality of a general election are just, they couldn't be more antithetical. Like to say like, oh, we won't talk about that because that's unfair or whatever, and we're going to be polite. It's somewhat analogous to the emails. It's like, yeah, you know what? Sure, it's kind of a bullshit issue. Okay, but he's going to run with this, and they're going to run with it. And so, I don't know what the answer and the strategy is, but pretending that the general electorate is like the MSNBC green room is super dangerous.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that Bernie is still 100% in this. All we've got so far in terms of trying to forecast are generally national polls that obviously don't actually mean much. I mean, this is not going to be waged as one big general across the country election. It's going to be individual state level primaries and caucuses. So we should be paying more attention to those. How each of these candidates does in those first few contests is going to be really important for influencing future ones. And I think that Bernie Sanders has a lot of experience in running in those sorts of races. I think that he can probably expect to do pretty damn well, especially in the first few. And with, a good enough showing in Iowa and New Hampshire, maybe Nevada, that could give him the momentum that he needs going into Super Tuesday, which is even bigger this time around than in past elections. The one thing I would raise, though, and I think it's what we talked about the last time I was on the show, is I think that a lot of people are just sort of expecting, they're sort of just like they think that Biden's already done. And right. Biden still, at least in terms of the polling, like, sure, his fundraising is nosediving. It's horrendous. But in the polling, he's still doing okay.
That's right.
And I think that for all of our concerns about what the general election would be like if it was Trump versus Warren, I think that Biden is riddled with issues that would be easily exploitable by Donald Trump and his surrogates. And,
yep.
Regardless of what you and I might think about Elizabeth Warren actually putting into effect the policies that we actually want, Biden doesn't even pretend. Like, he doesn't even have those to run on as sort of like a symbol,
Yeah, I agree with you. Although, I've been someone who's said from the beginning, like, don't discount Biden. But I have to say at this point, and it feels almost uncomfortable to say this, but again, I'll just be real. Like, I think we're getting like to very basic, like, physical cognitive questions about his capacity to keep going. So, like, if setting everything else aside, like Joe Biden in 2016 with the same terrible record and, and bankruptcy in Iraq and blah, 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 I would say not only would he be formidable in a Democratic Party primary, I actually think on some level he would be very safe to run against Trump, because I do think there's these other countervailing tendencies of, like, I just want normalcy and the guy's kind of charming. Like, I never dismiss the, like, superficial aspects of politics. I think in 2019, like, it's not just that there's all this, like, any number of issues with him and his kid that Trump could bring up. It's that I don't even trust his ability to be able to sustain the energy in a day of campaigning to spin it. Like, it's uncomfortable to watch.
He's already not running like Bernie is.
They're just in a completely different place physically and cognitively. To be honest, I find it, like, super uncomfortable. As much as I don't like Joe Biden, I don't enjoy watching him have his eye start to bleed or, lose his thought mid-sentence. Like, it feels to me almost like you have to ask professional questions about the people that are running his campaign. Like, is this like an act of integrity? And I might have made jokes several months ago about this, but honestly, watching it go on, to me, it's like, I don't think this is right.
Yeah, it makes us uncomfortable.
Right.
I guess it's that livish tendency to not want. Also, we have a history of people, throwing around health accusations around candidates.
Right.
And we see the attacks, the completely dishonest, overblown attacks against Bernie Sanders. The last thing we want is to engage in that same sort of BS. And yet, not everyone is physically ready to be president. Not everyone is mentally ready to be president. Not everyone currently in the Oval Office is mentally ready to be president. So we have to be honest, and we have to talk about that. But it does make me uncomfortable too.
Yeah, and I'm not, I wouldn't, certainly, that's actually one area I'm always advocating the Sanders campaign gets tougher. I would not use that line of attack. And I actually don't even find it like, this isn't like laying into Biden for being a corporate hack, which he is. It's uncomfortable. But, to me, we're several debates in, and it just is like, I don't think he's got the energy, and I don't mean that in a glib or insulting way. I mean that like, I don't think he's got it. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.